Well, you mentioned, I don't know, like a week ago maybe, that there will be a sense of like comfort or joy when you listen to your talks.
I think I've used the word resonance.
Yeah, resonance or sense of, so, I mean, there is a sense of enjoyment or resonance when I listen to you. I mean, obviously, you don't give anything really to do or hold on to or any hope.
I just try to stick to non-duality, although I do go off I go off talking about other things, but when I mean resonance, I mean it's like there is some form of knowing beyond yourself of what's being talked about, and that might be the side effect of joy or pleasant feelings, but it's not so much the pleasant feelings, it's like a knowing of what's being talked about, like, but not an intellectual thing. It's like it's like maybe like if you had an accident and you lost the sensation in your legs, and then somebody's reminding you about what it feels like to walk or to have legs, and there's a knowing of it, but it's maybe not quite like that. Or it's a knowing, like there's a knowing of this beingness or aliveness. Everything knows it because everything is it. It's just in the human it's got so focused on itself and where it's going in time that it seems to have covered it, but there's a knowing of this boundlessness and this stillness which is everything, that this is never going anywhere, this is not really real or happening, it just seems like it is. And for some people, I don't know why, but in some body mind mechanisms there's not so much interest in getting anymore, and then this begins to make sense, this begins to resonate somewhere. So that's how I kind of mean it, but it's hard to talk about what that resonance is because it's not a personal thing, it's not something that belongs to the human, and if it's not a personal thing or something that belongs to a human, then you can't find a word to describe it in our language, because our language is based on me and personal, and me as a subject and that as an object. So it's very hard to speak.
So that resonance, does it come through what you're saying, or is it?
I don't know how it works, to be honest.
Is it because I
don't know how it works. I don't know. There's lots of different theories around it. It seems from the memory of Lisa, it seemed to be that when non-duality was spoken about, like proper non-duality, through lots of different speakers, when they actually talked about non-duality and not therapy, but non-duality, there was a knowing so deeply of what was being talked about. But then I'd get confused about what I had to do and then all that other stuff. But it was like everything knew that. And then I kept thinking about myself, and I kept thinking I'd got it or I hadn't got it, or it was about process or doing something or releasing emotions or therapy, because most non-duality speakers speak about therapy and waking up at the same time. So I thought I was deconstructing Lisa, and I was watching the deconstruction of Lisa, or I was helping the deconstruction of Lisa in some way. But really, when I listened to non-duality, there was a knowing of it. And then sometimes even when Lisa would think about it, it was known. And it would just was that way. But then I would personalize it and think it was about me getting it. So until it really began to collapse, I didn't recognize that as such. I was more focused on me and what I was getting from it.
So who recognized it though?
But that's the really crazy part.
Because
right now, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the words for it because it's so hard. So right now, you think, the humans all think that who's listening now is the thinker, is the human. And in one way we could say it is, like the brain is being used in that way, and that's how life is experiencing itself. But ultimately, when you go through everything, like if you were to look deeply into the nature of what the body's made up up of, if you kept going down, you'd find different particles until you got to nothing. When you when it really gets penetrated, it seems like it's the body or the human listening, but actually there is absolute emptiness or stillness listening. But it's also producing the sounds actually as well, so it's producing everything. It's not something that's moving in time that's actually listening to all of this. We think it is though, because we've identified with time, and we've identified with this person that came here and sat and listened to it. So we think who's experiencing now is this person that we can see that's moving through time. And so Alan is listening to that, and that's what we're so convinced of, and we think we might even be more scientific about that. We think it's the body now that's listening to it. But actually the body is just a functioning, and it goes deeper than that, because who's creating the brain, who's creating the ears, who's creating the eyes? And then the less that there's the identification with anything, the more this single-pointedness comes through, like this direct dart, that this is coming absolutely from nowhere. Every sound is totally silent simultaneously. And all of this is all these forms absolutely empty. And God is the fullness and the emptiness. So right now there's not somebody that's seeing. That's all in the manifestation, that's all in the dream, that's how it seemed to be, that's how it's meant to be played. But actually the stillness expressing sight, the stillness expressing sounds and hearing, the stillness or no thing expressing everything. And that's who you've always been. And when I say you, it's only through lack of words. I don't mean you as anything to do with Alan, I mean through that. Who you've always been is this stillness and this everything. Just having the experience of a human apparently looking at an outside world. This isn't anything you can think about, so this is why I call it a resonance, because as soon as you think, you're going into the human world. You're going into the world of time. This is something through that. It's way beyond what we think we know. It's way beyond consciousness, or the idea that consciousness is experiencing all this. It's breathtaking. And it was here in every movement. It was here in every sound and every sight. Everything is spontaneously arising from mystery, from God, and is God. And that's always been the source of things. And you've never been vulnerable to life. You are life. It's just Alan that's vulnerable to life, and that's what it's meant to be. Alan's meant to seem like he's vulnerable to life. But you were never Alan. Alan was a part of life, and life was who you truly are. And I know I keep using the word you and who you are, but it's only because of lack of language. I have to use that in order to carry on making sentences. Unless I was super intelligent and I could think of a non-personal way to put it. But that's a joke again, because it's not really me that's speaking, but it's being spoken through this body, and it will have to, the way that it plays is it has to speak with the level of intelligence of this body. It has to speak with the tools of this body. It can't suddenly start speaking like a man. Although it has to speak with these tools. So with this intelligence, because that's how it's functioning. But actually these sounds aren't coming from a person in time. That's just how it seems. That's just how the game is played. They're actually coming directly from no-thing. And that no-thing is everything. And you won't die. The person will die, and everything that Alan knew and remembered and had experienced will die. But you will never die, because you were never alive.
So why is there this persistence of, like, yeah, there is an Alan here, and...
Because that's how it's meant to be played. That's how life is playing it at the moment. And life, no-thingness, doesn't have any agenda or care whether Alan wakes up or not. Because life, when it's all pierced through, it has no human quality, so it doesn't care if Alan gets it or not. It can't. It's not that it doesn't care, it just can't produce those qualities. It produces those qualities within a dream, within rules. But it can't inherently do that. So it's like you speaking to a playwright. That used to be my career, so I know it quite well. It's like you saying to me, as one of the characters, it would be a beautiful conversation actually in the middle of a play, for the characters to suddenly speak to the writer and say, why do you keep doing this shit to me again? I don't want to experience it again. And the playwright's like, well, I've got to write some drama, something's got to happen, otherwise you'd just be stood there on stage. But to the person, when it's really identified, it's like, oh my God, how can you do this again? But you've never really been that person. You've never suffered. You've always been life. Everything. Even in the darkest of thoughts or the deepest of fears, there's always been total, absolute freedom.
So there's not an Alan listening to a Lisa, and there's not an Alan.
No, there's an appearance of Alan that comes up, might saying, I spoke, but that's not who's actually speaking. Alan only exists in past and future, and this isn't past and future now. This is the present. This is the gift. Alan, everything you describe yourself to be will only come from the past. He's not here now. He's never been here. He can never be here. He's been an appearance which comes and goes here, but he's never actually been. He's never experienced a thing. That's not who you are, Alan. How can you be the past? Oh, the dogs are just going to bark now. Just 1 second. Just get, if you've got earplugs in, take them out. Oh no, maybe they don't. When the phone rings, normally the big one howls. Oh, he didn't. Very good, Cassidy. And even though we can seemingly speak in time, and this is where the confusion of the human is, so I can say, oh, Cassidy normally barks, and it's as if I'm talking about him, but that's just a description of the body. That's a description in time. It's not an actuality. Who he truly is stillness. He has no sense that he normally barks, or that he has a big bark or big teeth. It's just expressing in and as stillness. So what is there now, Alan, if who's listening if you don't think of yourself in time? Who's listening now?
It's just like it's just sound.
And so who hears that sound?
I don't know.
And that I don't know is absolutely beautiful. That the nearest you could say to it, I think, in language, is everything hears it. Like that's the nearest, like the sound is appearing and it is heard in and as everything. It's in everything. So everything, I mean, is like, it's this hearing it, not you as a person moving in time.
Well, how do you step out of that, though? I mean,
I know, it will get dropped. And I mean, it's being spoken about now. Like, so it is expressing itself. It's expressing, hang on, you're not that person. It's expressing it through this Lisa body, but it's nothing to do with a Lisa that we could define, but it's being expressed through this Lisa body. And so it's coming out, but it's not about, it feels like for the person that's moving through time, it's not about you getting there, a destination, because it's always been that. And that illusion that you are somebody experiencing this from past and going to future will begin to crumble, because it's always been a lie, and it's where the suffering lied.
Yeah, well, I mean, even, I'm still chasing after things.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well,
but
that will even carry on, even if identity drops, but it won't matter anymore. Like the body is set up to move towards pleasure. So the body will always chase things, but it won't be you chasing it anymore and your happiness prior to, when the identification's there, getting the things is your happiness and is the most important thing in the world, including enlightenment. That becomes the most important thing in the world. And then as the past and future begin to be seen not as you, that you're not something in the past moving to the future, then the seeking becomes, you could say the seeking disappears, but there will still always be the movement towards pleasure. So you will always still prefer a nice dinner over some rotten old dinner. The body will always move to survive, and the way the body survives is it indicates good things through pleasure and bad things through pain.
So there's, when you say, you know, who's listening, what's listening, I recognize that.
Yeah.
But
then the person comes back again. But that's what I'm trying to say, is that it is beginning to resonate. It's coming, the clouds are beginning to clear, but the person's like, oh God, I want it over now. But that's only in the personal world, I want it over now. Because you're never really going into the future, but that's how it begins to feel. In a way, this is the funniest talk that ever is, because I'm really giving you nothing, because this is a stripping away of what you are. So there is nowhere you will go. It's like a collapsing into this,